I don't know if I want to do the intro, but hello everybody. Welcome back to the Educated Clones Snap channel. How you doing? I'm not talking about that intro. I'm talking about the exactly. So here we will be talking about the October Spotlight Cash tier lists. That time of the month again. So we'll be going over all the caches and my opinions on it, as well as the season pass cards, since I decided to do that as well. Let's get started. Yeah. Oh my god. So first off, we do have the season pass. We have the ratings S to D, S, A, B, C, D. We've done this 100 times already. But the season pass we have is Agent Venom. This is a 2/4 on reveal. Set the power of all cards to your deck to 4. So it looks kind of it looks kind of innocent, honestly, when I look at this card. Okay, so your cards to 4. People sometimes play like 20 power cards, Infinite and whatnot. So like, how good can this be? But the real power of this card is it just fixes a lot of the weaknesses of some of the lower power cards, right? Usually when you're playing these cards, they're either very cheap or they have really powerful effects that warrant them having this low base power. So you play this on 2, and pretty much the rest of your deck is going to be much improved. So this easily can give you like 6 extra power to cards. If you're playing, every card you draw that you play is going to get a lot stronger. If you're buffing usually 1 to 4 or 0 to 4, you're getting a lot of value here. And it fits in a lot of decks. So generally Agent Venom, it's already come out a little bit, so people have already played a little bit of decks that this can go in. And you can just see like there's a lot of flexibility for the card. People are playing it in Destroy, people are playing it in Bounce, people are playing it just to buff these interesting cards. I've seen some Cerebro decks. Not a big Cerebro fan, but I've seen the decks. And there's just a lot of really good cards that can take advantage of Agent Venom's effects. So it's a type of card that unlocks decks that you really won't be able to like fully utilize before, and just also improve already existing decks. So I really like cards that when you get them, you already have a deck in mind, and you can just slot them in and they make the deck better. And to me, those are the types of cards you really want to prioritize, because right off the cuff, they're going to have a place. They're going to be somewhat viable. And then if depending on the uniqueness of the card, can they be played in other decks, or do they open up new lines as people like fully deck build and really create new ideas? And this is the type of card that really does open up new ideas to play. Can you build a very low power deck, just warranted, and then play this? We've seen some people use Black Swan. So Black Swan's it's a 2/3 now. It's an activate now. It turns all your 1-cost cards into 0. And since it's activated, you don't have to play it early. I mean, you don't have to play it on 5, which was kind of the issue. You have to like play it on 5 and then like hope that everything works out. Now you can kind of just hold your 1-drops very late in the game, have them all 4 power, and then dump. Especially if you're doing it with like Infinite or some other combo. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, generally, that is something that really wasn't like fully utilized before, and I have this tool to really make it feel powerful when you're playing that with Hitmonkey. So there's just like all these different viable strats that are coming out because Agent Venom's in the game, and so overall, you can tell that I'm a fan of this card. I do think it's worth picking up. So if you aren't already picking up Agent Venom as a season pass card, this does look good to me. And I will say that this does look to be the strongest card released this month. That's my personal opinion when I'm looking at the cards. I wouldn't say like the other cards we're going to talk about are bad, but I just think in terms of viability and usefulness, this looks like it has more places and is more safe for the future, safe in more decks. So if you were to pick like something to pick out of, this would be my pick looking at the cards for the month. But doesn't mean the cards are bad this month or the spotlights are bad this month. We're going to talk about them, but I do think Age of Venom, thumbs up for me. So when we go into the actual spotlights, there's going to be a theme for this month, and this is something that happens periodically every month, or not every month, but every couple of months, is that you're going to get these spotlights, or these seasons, or Secondary likes to do this, where they give you all of their bad cards in the secondary slots throughout the month. So sometimes when they release cards, they'll be duds. Like, they try not to do that, but it happens. You'll have some duds that don't stand the test of time, look fancy for a while, but then after like the season's over, people don't play them, they don't go back to them, they don't really find a home in the meta, and they can't just say, oh, these cards suck, let's move them to Series 3. They have to just say, hey, these cards didn't perform well, we're not going to offer them, we're not going to do much about them until things roll around again, and then maybe we'll have an OTA to buff them, or we'll try to work it into a spotlight that is worth picking up regardless of these duds in the pool. And they don't like adding like a dud in every month, because it does mean that your options, like that, it really limits. Like, if you have like 2 bad cards in the spotlight, you look at that spotlight, you never take it. But what they do is they put all the duds in one month, so that holistically they all look equally bad. And because they all look equally bad, they're like, okay, at least this is the best of the worst in terms of the duds. And that's my opinion of what's going on this month. These are just all the Series 4 cards that they can't really pick up, or the Series 5 cards that aren't really played in the meta and stuff like that. So you're really going to have to want the card they're selling. Now, fortunately for Second Dinner here, I do think all the new cards they're adding are quite good, and we're going to talk about all the new cards. But for me, all of these recommendations come from a place of the secondary cards that are next to the new card are not as good as you would want. So that's my cup of tea that I have to say before we get started. But here we go. We have Scream. So Scream is a 2/2. Once per turn, when your opponent moves a card, you steal 2 power from it. So that move card loses 2 power, and Scream gains 2 power. So this card, to me, is broken. Is like not broken, but it's like overtuned. But it needs to be overtuned to make the comps that Scream's plays would work. Because I think Scream is a fantastic card, but I think the cards that you have to play to make Scream work suck. You know, like Polaris isn't a bad card, but it's been power creeped in my opinion. Like there are other things you can do for three costs, which are like very, very powerful. And moving a 1 or 2 cost card isn't like the bee's knees anymore. It used to be, but nowadays I'm like, okay. But now that you have Scream, and you also have Kingpin on 1, which seems to be in preparation for like Scream and stuff like that. Like Kingpin into Scream into like Polaris. That is a knockout. Like that, you are actually doing some damage to your opponent if you do have like that 1-2 like 3 combo or Spider-Man, whatever, right? You actually have a setup that feels powerful, that feels strong. So I think if you want to play those type of move decks as well, another thing about Scream is that it is kind of like a tech card for move decks. Now, I don't think move is the problem right now. I would say Hela is more of the annoying deck to play against, right? But move is something that they have been trying to promote, and Madam Web is, to me, still a pretty powerful card that opens up like high level counterplay. And Scream does say, hey, if you have a Scream, your Madam Web kind of is kind of sucky. You're trying to move your your Human Torch, and boom, it just gets drained. You know, like it's kind of painful. So I do think it has that twofold proc where you can make your own Scream deck with Kingpin and all the move stuff. We're seeing Arrow in the game now because Scream exists and stuff like that. So we are seeing like new cards showing up again, Stegron, all those cards that have really been in the wayside. Scream is strong enough to make them feel good, but um, without Scream, I don't think I don't think those decks work at all. So if you want to play those move decks, I do think you need to pick up Scream. It's really the card unlocking that whole archetype. But if you don't like move, you don't want to play Kingpin, Arrow, Stegron, those type of cards, then you don't really need this. So, and then Man Thing and Mobius, like this is going to be a trend for this month. These are really low performing cards. They're both Series 4. They don't do that much in the meta. Like Mobius is good, but right now the meta isn't really Mobius specific. So you're kind of picking it up just, in hopes that it changes. And it's a Series 4 card. So if you get enough tokens, and the meta really dictates you need Mobius, you can just pick it up through the token shop. So it's not like, hey, I need to pick it up through the spotlight or anything like that. So this is just a Scream Spotlight. I do think Scream's very good, but if you don't want to play a Scream archetype or you're not fighting into a ton of move decks, then you don't really need to pick up Scream. But it's like a 4 power swing. It's Thena levels, in my opinion. Like old Thena levels. That's how I feel about some of these cards being released, but you have to play them in their archetypes. Next up, we have Misery. So Misery has the benefit of being next to 2 Series 5 cards. So that is like its greatest strength here, where at least it's next to 2 Series 5s. I wouldn't say the Series 5s that they're picking are like the cream of the crop. War Machine is actually quite good, but they did nerf it. So it was 4/7. They did buff it, and then they were like, it's too much. I don't like the Storm into War Machine game plan, So they kind of nerfed that a little bit, but it's still pretty playable. So if you do like doing that, and it's really good into bots, if you're trying to like hit infinite, like they still don't know what to do if you do the combo. So that is pretty nice. Nomura is a little bit niche. It has like some pretty obvious weaknesses. You have to, like, you can't be playing into Clog. You have to have the right setup, and people can still just Shang-Chi you. People can still just Shadow King you. So its weaknesses are pretty apparent, so you have to be aware of that. So it's not like the most powerful combo. People have been trying to do it with Scarlet Spider to just buff up a Scarlet and copy it into another lane, and that's kind of cool if it goes off, but once again, right, not guaranteed to do that. You get Shang-Chi and you lose, so those are some of the issues there, but it is a card to play. It's a fun card if you want to do it. Nothing really game-breaking there. Misery, on the other hand, once again, the new cards are pretty cool. Misery is the same here, so it's kind of like a 4-cost Odin, but you destroy the activators. Now, since you destroy the cards being activated, it does limit some of the on reveals you can use. It means the on reveals have to not be relied on themselves. So like Black Panther is not really a Misery card, because you play it on Black Panther, it doubles, but then Black Panther dies. Chadwick Boseman. Oh no. Right? It's not the best uses, but Electro cards like that, where you really don't want the body anymore, is really nice. So White Tiger is really good. Maybe Jubilee if you want to do that. There's a lot of like on reveals that don't actually care whether it themselves live or not. So Misery will open up those deck lists, and it's a 4-cost Odin. Like, that is pretty powerful. Its base stats are good. So if you can find those useful tools, Hood's another one, right? Like there's a number of cards where this makes sense to combo with. So I do think if you are doing that, it has that kind of aura to work out. So I do think Misery is a pretty good card. Overall, I do think Misery is the type of card people will need time to figure out the deck for. So it might not pop off out the gate, but it does have some, at least initially, playable combos with Electro and Hood and stuff like that people will work out with. So it's a pretty cool card if you do want to experiment, if you do want to really work your deck building niche this is definitely like my type of card that I really like. Hey, I could build this type of deck, see how it performs. But yeah, definitely cool looking card. Let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have the Athena for discard. That's kind of how I look at it. But we do have Scorn, so this card does give, when it gets discarded, it goes back into your hand, and it gets stronger by +2, as well as giving something on your board +2. So every time you discard this, essentially you're getting +4, but you do have to play this card at the end. This one definitely seems like a Corvus Glaive Apocalypse like core, because Corvus Glade, right, does give you that 1 power, 1 extra energy. It does mean turn 6 you can play both Apocalypse and Scorn, and then you can just like go full discard with like Hell Cow and all the other discard tools, and then you just like pop off turn 6 with this with 2 big boys, right? Which seems just good, seems pretty strong. It's kind of like Swarm in that you can discard it forever and it gives you value. So it's very easy to have one card on your board. Like anytime you play it, you need to play a discard anyways to trigger to get, so you'll have something on the board every time. So just seems like pretty good, pretty strong. If you're playing non-hella discard, this seems like a very nice addition to add to your collection, especially if you're playing it with Corvus Glaive, right? Because I do think Corvus Glaive matters, so that you have that 7 energy turn 6. Because if you don't have 7 energy turn 6, then you're gonna have to make a decision: do I want to play Scorn plus something else, or am I playing just the Apocalypse, a big boy in the final turn? So I do think like without the Corvus, you're losing that. You have to think about it. Whereas if you have Corvus, you have 7 energy, is very clean. So I think that makes sense. The cards is next to, same problem. Like Jean Grey really doesn't see that much play. Got buffed, but still not like impressive compared to what you really can do on 3. And then Sebastian Shaw, Silver Surfer just has so many options. Honestly, there's so many things you can do with Silver Surfer. Sebastian Shaw, whether you're playing a Sebastian Shaw Silver Surfer deck or not, like you're still gonna be absolutely fine. So you don't really need Sebastian Shaw. It's just like another option, but not like, I wouldn't even say like the best option. It's like a decent option. So whether you have it or not, like it doesn't matter. It's not like it's not core to the deck build, right? You need Silver Surfer, right? That's core. Sebastian Shaw not core. So same kind of issue. It's a good card, but it's very skippable. So if you like Scorn, you like discard, this is a good piece, especially if it's not hella discard. This is a good piece to add, right? Like this is a card that will seems like fit that new discard shell. Whereas if you're not a discard player, you don't really have to get it. Doesn't really feel like you would need to play it in other decks. Like even if you discard it once, it's pretty good, right? Like discard it once, it's pretty good, but I don't think you're playing like Culling Wing as a shell, like Culling Wing Swarm Scorn as a shell. Like that could work, but I haven't seen that, right? Like that's not a established shell in the metagame, so I'm not throwing that in there. But it is interesting. If you have enough like small cheap discards, then you could definitely do something like that. But right now, like that's not the case. So definitely just seems like Apocalypse Corvus Glaive core piece. Next up, we have Toxin. So if you're a bounce player, once again, this is the Athena for bounce. That's now that I'm throwing that in there, it really does feel like that. The Athena for move, the Athena for discard, the Athena for bounce. Like everything is Athena this month. But yeah, definitely a pretty nice. This just reminds me of Beast, right? So this is Beast, right? But it's old Beast, but without the cost reduction, right? And Beast is on 3 anyway, so you have the 2 cost Beast again. So Toxin does get a little bit stronger, but it doesn't give you that discard, which is kind of like, the cost reduction, which is like kind of like the broken part of Beast, anyways. So yeah, now you get the 2 cost bounce effect back. So just seems pretty good if you're playing bounce. Silver Sable is like a big staple in the meta. So there's just a lot of little bounce techs you can do these days. So seems good, seems strong. I do think it's a good card to add. Nothing crazy jumps out to me with this card. This just seems like a pretty good pickup if you're into bounce decks. Now Zabu, do have a question mark for its spotlight, just because I'm pretty sure Zabu's getting adjusted before the spotlight releases. So how valuable Zabu will be will really just dictate on like what the adjustment to Zabu is, right? Because right now Shabu is seeing some play basically for Wiccan, like that's the only use case that makes sense right now. You just use it for Wiccan, but we'll see what the change is and how strong it ends up being, right? If it is a strong change, then maybe this is like a B spotlight. But I do think in a lot of cases it's still going to just end up being C tier, just because it's a Series 4, first of all, and how good is Zabu going to be? Is it going to be like, hey, this is now a new standard, you need to be adding this to a lot of your like heavy tier 4 or heavy 4 cost decks, right? Like yes or no, maybe. But right now, like Zabu isn't the strongest card. There's really one use case that people are really going for that makes sense, and everything else not really. And the win rate isn't strong for Zabu, so just isn't something. And it's a Series 4, so it isn't something you would really push towards getting. Elsa kind of has the same issue. It's seeing some play just because it's pretty good in the meta right now. So, but historically, it hasn't been like the craziest card, and it sometimes always pops up. It's good in bounce, so at least the spotlight makes sense right next to Toxin. Like Elsa can help with that if you're playing Kitty and all that combo stuff. So yeah, definitely. If you like bounce decks, Toxin makes sense. The other two not sold on, but that's just the current theme of this month. And then last but not least, we do have Anti-Venom. So a lot of people have been comparing this to Iron Lad, and I can definitely see the comparison where maybe it's like a controllable Iron Lad where you get the effect, but you don't have to immediately like play it. You just get the zero cost version. I do think it's a little better. I don't know if it's better than Iron Lad actually. It's different. It's different than Iron Lad because you can use it in different ways. I do think this works really well as like a combo tool, and also generally if you build into like maybe like a Patriot shell or something like that, there's definitely some synergies. What's really nice is if you have a lot of like cheap power cards. So like Blob, if you hit Blob, you hit like Iron Man. Like if you can build a deck, Blob and Iron Man don't go together, right? Blob is weird too because if you're playing Anti-Venom, you're probably playing a low power deck that has really good payoff. So Blob's probably not. But then again, 15 power is like not that hard to get if you just play Blob anyways. It's not like an old Blob, so maybe it still work. Anyways, I'm going off tangent. But Anti-Venom does seem pretty good. It seems like there are some combo decks that can really take advantage of it, and you can also just build decks that have good payoffs. Even like Doctor Doom is a pretty good payoff, right? You get the 10 power for 0. So seems pretty good, seems pretty strong. Definitely has its niche use cases, but I do like it. It's probably my favorite card out of the 5 in the spotlights that's being released, so take that as you will. Ghost Spider is pretty good still. Move has seen a small resurgence, and Ghost Spider definitely fits in that shell, and it's just a fun card to play. It is a Series 4, so it is a little bit weaker. Super Giant is one of those duds, honestly. It's just no one plays Super Giant. I don't see it. I mean, it's a type of card where if it was strong, it would be frustrating to play. So I'm like, okay that it's not in the meta, but it isn't very strong right now. So I wouldn't like recommend to pick up Super Giant just because you can. So, but Anti-Venom seems good, seems fun. So definitely would recommend if you like playing those type of cards. So overall, this is kind of like the theme of this month. The 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 new card is good. The supporting cards are bad. That's my overall opinion. Like Anti-Venom good, Toxin good, Scorn good, Misery good, Scream good, and the Man Thing Mobius no. Nomura War Machine's okay. Shabasha Shaw's okay. Jingray no. Zabu we'll have to see. Elsa's like iffy. Not nothing. There's no like premium card in the support system that I'm like you have to get. Like nothing jumps out. Like if you skip this whole month of support, like you're not really missing out on anything at all. So best card in my opinion is the season pass. So if you want Agent Venom, definitely pick that up. It looks good to me. But you're really going to have to see what archetypes do you want to play. Do you like the move? Do you want to play, move Kingpin, Spider-Man deck? Yes. If you want to play Electro into Misery, or like armor Misery, if you want to play it like Odin, you can also do that. So that's pretty cool on reveal deck. Scorn is for discard, Toxin is for bounce, and then Anti-Venom's for combo deck. So they all look like they have a place, but you just have to say how much do I want the new card, and versus like having these bad duds in the supporting cards. So overall, that's my thoughts on this month. Hope you guys have a nice month, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day, and peace out.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be